The new SmartThings application is ready to go, but you need to understand where everything is and how to accomplish your smart home's automation with the new application. Hello automators, thanks for tuning in again. I'm Brian from Automate Your Life, and today I'm going to take the frustration out of automation by helping you with the new SmartThings application. Samsung has sent out notifications to a number of people, and this is kind of a rolling thing that you will see show up where you have to go and actually transition over to the new application. Now, we'll talk about that specifically in our news, what that process looks like, but today we're going to walk through the full application, and I'm just going to show you where everything is and how you accomplish most of the things that you're going to want with SmartThings. The first thing I want to do is show you the difference between the two apps and their icons. So you can see the first app icon right here. This is the SmartThings Classic application, and this is the new icon. So you'll need to download that from the Google Play Store or the iOS App Store. And once you go into Samsung SmartThings, the new application, if you haven't already, you'll need to sign in with your credentials that you used in the Classic application. So it's just the same, just sign in with those same credentials. Now, this is the main page of the application. You can see I have quite a few devices on here. So we're not going to go through all that just yet. We're going to start right at the very top here with the Samsung SmartThings home monitor, and then we'll go through the menus and we'll also go through all the device types. If you don't have the Samsung SmartThings home monitor set up, I'll show you how to do that in a moment, but you can see that you can toggle through the different sections here. There's my leaks, and I haven't set up leak monitors just to show you how to do that in a second. The security section, you can simply arm your system and say you're away, and you can see I get a notification up here based on one of my sensors being open, and this is my armed stay and a disarmed function. Now, if you had smoke detectors connected, they would show up here as well. And the leak detectors, this is where you can actually go into this whole home monitor solution just by tapping there, and you will be able to walk through the different sensors and choose the sensors that you would like to use for the away mode and the stay mode for your armed system. If you'd like to configure this, here's the button up at the top. This is the settings button, and this allows you to go into each different section of the application. So going into security, I can choose my armed away sensors, and you can see I've chosen use all sensors, but you can go ahead, uncheck that, and then choose the different types of motion capture here. Now, a new option that is showing up here is only people for motion type, and that is going to be developed further basically based on the SmartThings Vision and the SmartThings Cam. So right now, just stick with all motion, choose your open and close sensors that you'd like, and choose your motion sensors that you'd like. You can also have some specific sound sensors. So you can see my Samsung SmartThings camera is a sound sensor as well. Now, again, I'm just going to choose use all sensors in this case and hit done. So this is now how you go ahead and adjust the sensors that you're dealing with. You can also adjust the response. So you get a push notification these days in most countries. There's no more SMS. You also get an image from your camera if you have a camera. And if you have a sound siren or cameras, you can record video and trigger sirens as well. You can also turn on different devices and different lights throughout your smart home and play audio notifications, again, if you have that connected speaker. In terms of security mode reminders, you want to get these, I think, when everyone leaves and when everyone arrives, and then you can actually manage the members right here. You can go ahead and connect different arrival sensors to ensure the triggering of either someone arriving or leaving. You can go through the same thing with the smoke detectors, but here's the leak sensors. And again, you can see I'm just using all the motion sensors. I'm going to hit next, and I want to record video. And if I had valves, I could deal with that as well. So we're just going to hit done in this case, and now I have my leak monitor all set up inside my smart home. Once you're back at the main page, you actually have a history button that you can go ahead and have a look at the different intrusions or the different things that have occurred. You can see a full breakdown of what was found when the alarm was dismissed and the sound detected, or if it was a visual or a person detected, that's what would happen. And then they're showing you the video clip right here that you can go ahead, and if it was still saved to the cloud, I could see it there. Now I promised to show you how to actually add that smart home monitor, so I'm going to hit the plus, go down to SmartApp, and here is the Samsung SmartThings home monitor. Now we'll come back to the SmartApp in a little bit, but for right now, that's how you get started with this SmartThings home monitor. You can see that I have my SmartThings video, and this interface is based on having a connected camera. So you can see that I have motion and sound detections having gone on throughout my home. I can play the clip, and I can also expand into a bigger player and have it show up here. And if I'd like to go to live, I can also go to a live screen that allows me to record video, take pictures, communicate two ways, and listen to the audio in general there. You can also see that activity history again, where it's detecting sound and other activities. I can, of course, turn the camera on and off as well. Up in the top right, you'll have to get used to these three dots all over the place. You should be used to it with most applications at this point. You can go into My Info, and this tells you the plan that you are on with your Samsung SmartThings camera. So you can see I'm just getting the 24-hour cloud storage. This is the free plan, but if I wanted to upgrade, I could go ahead and look at that option through Samsung. I can also edit the name of the camera, the location, so if I need to change the home that it's in and the room that it's in, and I can add it to the home screen if it's not already there, or delete the device. Back up in the menu, I can go to some additional settings for this camera. You can see the night vision, the ability to flip the image if I've mounted this upside down. I can also include the watermark or not, and set the motion detection zones if I'd like. Sensitivity and volume is also on here, as well as the ability to turn on and off audio recording. I can also turn on a wide angle view and change the resolution as well if I'd like. Backing out back into the main page, you can see a number of devices. Now, this is a little bit tricky. You have to actually hit the top right corner to turn on and off any device that you have. You can see the status though of different sensors. So this is a door sensor on my freezer. You can see it saying closed, and this is a temperature sensor within my fridge, giving me the temperature inside that fridge. But again, you can turn on and off devices simply from here. Now there's more to this interface, and the first thing is this is a room. So you can see I set up a room called fridge, and this allows me to put these devices inside that room and organize them how I'd like. I can click those dots and manage the room, remove the room, add devices from other rooms, so I can simply check and just choose one if I've moved something into that specific room. And of course, I can go ahead and move some of these devices to other rooms. Now, I can also do that by holding on any of the tiles. So I didn't press on the top right there, but I can move this to another room, or I can edit this device very quickly, change its location, its room, its name, and add it to the home screen, or simply get rid of the device. Now, if I'd like, I can add a device to this room directly, and this is your main adding device page, so I can go ahead and search by any device name or by brand, or device type rather, or I can just simply scan, and there's also a QR code option for some of those newer devices. Within each device there is some additional information. So this is a contact sensor, as I showed you before. It is closed, and it's showing the battery life and the activity history of that device as well. Again, if I'd like, I can simply edit and get the information from this device. It doesn't tell you a lot in terms of information, but when I go to edit, I'm back at that edit screen for the device. Now, if I go into a controllable device, like say the Christmas tree here, this is a smart plug, and actually it's a Wemo smart plug. I can go ahead and tap on the device to turn it on and off, and I can also set timers. So if I'd like to, I can power it on, I can power it off, and I can set delays for custom times as well. I can also power it on at a specific time or power it off at a specific time. So if you just want to set up that basic automation, then you can go ahead and do that through the application, or you can again control it and edit the information. For devices like a temperature or an illuminance, this is the interface that you get. So it's actually showing that inside my fridge, it is completely dark, which is what you want to see most of the time, unless you have that door open. So that's a normal component there. Back to the main page, here is the scene section. So this is something I added, and lighting groups as well. Now we'll get into those. You can see that I'm filming. I have all of those lights on, and I could go ahead and trigger any of the scenes that you will remember from the home page of the previous SmartThings application. A good example of a button controller is right here with the IKEA trad-free remote. You can see that I've put in a custom device handler that allows me to actually trigger all these different buttons here, or at least see them, and then set the different capabilities for each of those button presses. Now there's a main page for buttons within Samsung SmartThings that I'll show you in a bit, but continuing to move down, you can see that I have all of these different types of devices. We're not going to go into each and every one, but what you might be wondering is, how do I make sure that the fridge is the top room here in my home? And that is actually the ability to edit with those three dots again. So I can simply grab and drag up and down any of my different sections within the application and hit save. There is also the ability to manage the location through the main page, the three buttons there. Here's your location name. Here's the geolocation that you're going to want to set in order to have your cell phone and other geolocation features work. You can also set the location mode, but I don't really think this is a very useful component to the application at this point, so we're not going to spend a lot of time on it. The wallpaper can be set again. There's nothing really custom that you can do right now through this, and you could also remove the entire location had you created an extra one. One of the most important things is the ability to actually add something. So again, you saw this screen for adding a device, but that's how you add a device very quickly. And then you can go back into there and you can add an additional room, though you do have a limitation to how many rooms you can have. I believe it's around 20 in the SmartThings application. Here's where you can create a lighting group. You can name it, and then you simply select the devices and hit done to create a lighting group. If you want to use your voice assistant, you can simply tap on adding a voice assistant. Now I've connected both of mine, but it is a simple tap on these to go ahead and add them initially, and then you have to put in your credentials for those two voice assistants. Next up is the ability to create scenes. So this allows you to control different devices all at the same time, and these can be used in automation. So if I wanted to turn on, say, those two devices, I can go ahead and choose to turn on both of them, and with different light bulbs and light bulbs with color schemes, you can go ahead and you can select many of the different features as well. So I could create this scene and then use it in automations. Deepening further is the ability to create automations very quickly. So this is the conditions section of automations. You can hit the plus. You can see that we can choose time, device status, the location of our members, and we can set this based on all of our members or one of them. The location mode, which we talked about, I don't think, again, this is very useful, but you can also use the security mode. So time is very simply put which days and which times, or a period of time if you'd like. And you can go ahead and have that as one of your triggers. You can set a device status. So let's say I want to know when the fridge door is opened. I can add that as a condition, and I can add a second condition if I wanted another device status, the location mode, or say I only want to know when we have our security system armed and away. So now I have the ability, if I'd like, to add another condition, and I can go ahead and choose either any or all conditions. So this allows me to say either of these things are true triggers this automation to occur, or all of these things have to be true in order to trigger the automation. So hitting next gets me to the action side, and this is where I can control devices, send notifications, change the locations mode, or run some of those scenes that we talked about earlier. The ability to control devices, you can add multiple, and this gives you the ability to execute all kinds of things in your smart home. So I could turn on or off a smart plug. I can delay the action if I'd like by any amount of time. I can set in seconds, in minutes, or in hours, and I can auto turn it off, and you kind of have to choose one of the two of these, but I could auto turn this off after 10 seconds. So get just the Christmas tree comes on for 10 seconds to let me know. With smart bulbs, you also have the ability to set the dimmer, and if it's a temperature controlled bulb or a color controllable bulb, you will have that show up here as well. With our cameras that are connected, we can go ahead, turn them on or off, and set to record an action whenever we have something. So this is a manual way to trigger recordings. Once I hit done, I have the ability to name the automation, and then it will go into my main list of automations. You can see it right there. And if I'd like, I have the ability to edit that, and I have the ability to delete the entire automation by tapping up at the top. If I'd like, on the main automations page, I can also hit that to turn off an automation if I no longer have a use for it, or if I want to simply create a new automation, test out a new automation. I can also delete and choose to sort by a number of different things, or add a new automation entirely from this page. We can also add additional smart apps. So you already saw the smart home, SmartThings monitor here. You have the ability to add some of these other smart apps like smart lighting, the color coordinator, which allows you to basically tie multiple colored lights together, and you have the ability to control your connected thermostat in some smarter ways. The speaker companion is a very powerful thing if you have the right kind of speaker. Sonos and Bose are the two that come to mind for me right now. And the door knocker, so if somebody comes and knocks at your door but it's not opened, you might want to know that as well. Now you can see these other smart apps that I have down here. This is WebCore, and WebCore is a whole different tutorial, but you have the ability to actually see your WebCore here in the Smart Apps section. The last component is the ability to add a member. So you can go ahead and send invitations by email address and on a Samsung account as well. Or you can send them using a QR code. Now there's a whole nother section or a whole nother menu over here, and this is where things can get really in depth. Now you're seeing the rooms, the devices, the scenes, automation, smart apps, members, and history. These are all things that we've seen components of, but there's also this settings up at the top. Now your basic account is already up here. Do you want to receive notifications? And the connected services is a very important component here. So as I connected the two voice assistants, and you saw that in the earlier component or the earlier section of this video, you saw Amazon's voice assistant and Google's voice assistant. If I go to ifthisthenthat.com, I can actually get that service connected as well by logging in with my Samsung SmartThings credentials. I've added SwitchBot, and that was just adding a device, and this gave me the ability to integrate with SwitchBot. Same thing with TP-Link or Casa, and the ability to add AccuWeather Connect. Within the connected services section, I'm going to go into Google here just to show you that you can actually limit which devices are available to these voice assistants. Now, you can see that I can go into the switches section and I can actually choose which ones. Now, why would I do this? It is because I've integrated Philips Hue into Samsung SmartThings, and you've probably done this with something else, but this allows me to make sure that Philips Hue lights don't show up twice within the Google Assistant or the Google Home application. Now you have the same option with Amazon's voice assistant and if this then that as well. Do I want Bluetooth and Wi-Fi auto on? Now this is actually talking about your smartphone whenever you are using the application here. Basically, do you want to turn on Wi-Fi and Bluetooth on your phone to make sure you can connect to new devices? Do you want to ask to add new devices as soon as you get into the application again? Can we use the phone location? This is very important for that geolocation and also in terms of kind of setting your smart home monitor on its own to turn on and off based on people being around. Do you want to allow your phone to use Bluetooth low energy scanning basically to alert other devices that you're around? This will become more important as we go forward. You have the ability to look at the privacy policy, download your personal data and erase your personal data as well as the auto update service here. So when you're on this, do you want the automatic updates basically when you're on your Wi-Fi, or do you want to do it through either your 3G, 4G, or nowadays 5G connection? Do you want those automatic updates to come through? And one important thing to note is that that does mean your devices that are connected to your SmartThings hub. If you also want to see a little about page for SmartThings, here it is at the bottom of the settings section. Now back into this menu, this is where you can actually tap to look at other locations. If you had multiple locations, you could go ahead and add a secondary location if you had a second SmartThings hub connected to the same account. Now going into rooms, this is again where you can go ahead and organize things. You can simply tap onto or hold onto any of those, and now you're back in this screen where you can go ahead and pull different rooms up and down based on what you'd like. You can add rooms again, and you have the ability to reorder again. So you can see they're giving you multiple ways to get to the same screens. Now devices, this is all the different devices. There's that AccuWeather that you saw earlier. So what you should understand from this is the AccuWeather was an actual device that I added. So I simply tapped on that and I could search for AccuWeather. Within this page, I can go into any of the different devices, see their status, see their batteries, and get lots of different information from those. Here's another way to get to scenes, which you've already seen, and I can run any of them by simply tapping over here. I can go ahead and delete and set different favorites, which ensures that they show up on the main screen. Here's the ability to get back into automations, and again, I can click the plus to go ahead and create a new automation. Inside of this list though, there is also the ability for a few quick controls, and I think this section will improve over time. We'll probably get things like speakers and other components as we get more quick controls. So do we want basically the camera again to record off of all motion or just people, or not record automatically only through triggered automations or some of our SmartThings home monitoring there? Do we want it to trigger off of sound to record? And what do we want with our notifications? Do we want the captured image or do we want text only? While we're in this section, I think it is important to see how to automatically trigger your home security system. So you can see that I have an if statement where the presence of my Pixel 3a, that's this phone sitting right here, is at home. Then I turn on a light because I was just doing some testing earlier. And then I go ahead and I send a notification for the security mode being disarmed, and I change the security mode to disarmed. Now I have a automation that does the exact same thing, because the difference between the classic app and this is that this does not happen automatically. So you can see that I've set it as when this is not at home, and I wait a minute for activation just to make sure I don't have any sirens when I get them here, or I have any door locks locked before I'm on my way out. And you can see I'm changing the security mode to armed and away. So back into the menu, here's the Smart App section. I think it's important to go through this a little bit as well. So we've already seen this page where you can go ahead and add a Smart App. Now I'm going to show you, you can go ahead and tap on any of these. Here's smart lighting, and again, I've already added this, but this is the way you want to do most of your smart lighting automation. So create a new automation through this. Don't actually create a base automation, because those base automations are run through a cloud service, whereas this can actually be done locally if you're using the right types of devices. So which device do I want to control? Let's say I want to turn on what's called my pretty light whenever something happens. So my pretty light is a full color bulb, and this will give us the most options. If I wanted, I could activate any of those scenes, and then I have the ability to turn it on, turn it off. I can mirror behavior for other devices. So when I tap that, I get new options in the other page. I can turn on and set level. I can set color. I can set color temperature. So today we'll set the color, and then again, you can see these additional options show up. So I can just pick some of the colors. I want to turn it to red, and I can set the dimmer level on this as high or as low as I'd like. So I'll set it to 20%. And what is the trigger that I wish to use for this? I can use motion, the open close sensors, acceleration on different sensors, lock, presence of a phone, the switch, buttons, smoke detectors, carbon monoxide, water leaks, and different times. So I can set at sunrise, at sunset, which is set in based on your address or your geolocation. These show up in the application, so you want to set that right, and then at a specific time when a mode changes, or based on the illumination in a room. So the easiest one to see is motion triggers, and when I do that, I can set which motion trigger. So if I wanted, I could set multiple of these, and then that allows me to either start or when the motion starts or when it stops, I can go ahead and trigger that on. Now, what's nice about lighting automation is I can also turn it off after motion stops, and I can set, say, 2 minutes of time between that. Now, there are more options, so you can go ahead and tap more options, and this allows you to get really sophisticated with your lighting automation. So if I only wanted this to happen between a certain time, I could set that, and then I can also set things like certain days of the week, or only when we're in a certain mode, or other components. So if I only want certain switches, or if I only want this to trigger on when another switch is on, you can see how complex we can get with these more options for the different settings. And again, with lighting, only if the illumination is at a certain level, and then I can set which sensor I actually am using for that illumination. Once I have all of my settings, I can hit the next button, and now I have the ability to edit the automation name, because these names come out pretty wild and crazy actually. So red, we'll just call this red pretty light. So now you can see that automation right here. I can go in and edit it if I'd like, and I can also delete it because I don't really want my light to turn red. Now, once you've added all the different smart apps that you'd like, Action Tiles is one that I have, which gives me a controller. I can go into that or any of these smart apps and manage what is available to that in the case of Action Tiles. And it's things like the button controllers here. These are more complex, and again, local automation. So I can choose the different buttons that I have, and I can set automations off of these buttons. Once I've gone into my big button, that's what I've called it now, you can see that I can trigger things on and off if it's pushed or if it's held. I'm using it to control lights, but you can use locks and those connected speakers as well. So that's very powerful stuff. You can set your modes, the home action. So do you want these different scenes basically to trigger? You can also trigger sirens if you had kind of a panic button, and you have the ability to send push notifications with messages as well. And in some cases, in some countries, which I think is only the US now, SMS notifications can go out. This is an interesting component, the virtual device creator. Now, what we know from Samsung is that over time, virtual switches will go away. And if you haven't already in the existing SmartThings application created your first virtual device, this will not show up for you and you cannot add that app right now. So this is not a smart app that you can add right now. And you can see that right from here. These aren't things that you can add. So if you're seeing something here that you want, you actually have to go to the old classic app and add these smart apps the first time. And the virtual device creator is a good example of one of the ones where you have to go back to the classic app, add the first virtual switch or virtual device, and then you will get this to show up in the new application. Now again, over time, this is going away for something better, which is essentially web core and a new rules API that's going to come out later. You have the ability to add members here, and you can see I already have myself, and again, you can go ahead and add members. And the history for your entire activity throughout the entire application. You have the ability to have a look at everything that's happened in your smart home. Down here is all devices and a supported devices list. So this is again just basically the add device list. You can also hit more compatible devices to go through an extensive list if you're just wondering what is actually available. Of course, the best thing you can do is actually search for whichever device that you are looking for. If you have any messages, and sometimes you get messages here about your different home monitoring and different things that have occurred, so you can see the activity is showing up. So this is just like a history breakdown of the more important messages for you. How to use gives you a full walkthrough of lots of the things I'm doing here, but in a much more basic format. So if you just need some of those things. The notices is a good section here to have a look at every once in a while when they show you a little icon next to that. So what you will see is a little icon or a little eye, I think it is, right here next to notices whenever they have an update, and you can go in and read the updates that they've given us. Of course, shameless plug, you can just come back to Automate Your Life and I will do that for you. Every few weeks we add these things. Now, here's the Contact Us page. One thing that's very important for people is the ability to put your hub into Z-Wave exclusion. Now, in order to do this, you actually have to find your hub within the smart home interface. So this is just the main interface on the main page. Once you found that, tap to go in, and then you're going to hit the 3 dots up in the top right. But you can also see a secure mode here where you're able to kind of lock down the entry points of Zigbee devices and control whether or not you allow firmware updates. Now, those 3 dots allow you to get to the Z-Wave utilities, and this has a couple of functions on it where you can use the Z-Wave exclusion and the ability to repair your Z-Wave network. But this is what I would call a pretty full walkthrough of the Samsung SmartThings application. There you have it. Now make sure you subscribe to Automate Your Life for more tutorials and for our upcoming news about the Samsung SmartThings platform. We do those every few weeks here. You can check one of those out on screen right now. Thanks for watching, everyone. And of course, don't hate, automate.